All right, I think we can safely get started now. So welcome to the fourth of the Health Fundamental Series classes. This is Healing Power of a Peaceful Mind. I'm Dr. Chris Slininger. I'm one of the doctors here at the Pierce Clinic. And this is a new series, actually, that we started launching this year. And we really had an idea that if we taught a little bit more about the principles behind some of the major health topics, that we could help people make decisions for themselves. And a lot of this came from a quote from a very, I think, brilliant man, Ralph Waldo Emerson. He said this: "As to the methods, there may be millions and then some, but principles are few. The man who grasps principles can successfully select his own methods. The man who tries methods ignoring principles is sure to have trouble." I think this quote is very, very powerful because we have a lot of methods out there when it comes to health. We're told what diets to follow, we're told what exercises to do, but half the time we barely know what we're doing or why we're doing them especially. We just go, well, the trainer told me to do it, or the nutritionist told me to do it, or the doctor told me to do it, but why are you doing it? Unfortunately, that's not really a question that's asked or answers that are given very often. So we thought maybe if we just pick some major topics, we talk a little bit about those subjects and get down to some of the principles behind it, that we could navigate all of the media, all of the suggestions a little bit better and start to make better decisions for ourselves. Okay? This creates a little more independence in and of ourselves. And I think independent people are very fun. Interdependent, where we rely on each other to accomplish greater things, that's even better than independent. So, diving into this class, Healing Power of a Peaceful Mind really is about emotions. What we're talking about is emotions in the physical body. And really, there's a big question we have to ask if we're going to understand a little more about this. Is there a separation between the way we feel emotionally and the way we express physically? What do you think? So we have yeses and nos?
I'm yes and no, because we were talking a little earlier, and sometimes I think I'm fine and I'm calm and I'm in a good place in my mind, and whatever has been going on is on, but my body holds on to it.
Yeah. There's some chairs right around the corner. Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
So it's like... Yeah.
It's a yes and a no, right? It's kind of a weird question. What we're going to do is explore a little bit of the interconnection between these two and see if there's a line of delineation or a blurred line or possibly no line at all. Okay? Now, I have a question for you. Have you ever seen somebody that's stressed, or has anybody ever been stressed in their life?
No, never.
Okay, what does a stressed person look like? Or what do you look like when you're stressed? What's that? Okay, there's something really common, though. Anybody ever get tight shoulders, right?
Oh, yeah.
Tight shoulders, either on the top or between the shoulder blades. It's interesting. When we get stressed, we usually feel like we have more weight than we can bear. Like we have the weight of the world on our shoulders. Well, if you had weight on your shoulders, what would you do? Push up, right? There's a reason why certain muscles start engaging when we feel a certain way. Stress. Now, if you don't want somebody to know that you have stress, you put it somewhere they can't see it. Right on your back. So it goes back. It's very interesting. See, posture is a dead giveaway of the way you're feeling. Insecurity, what does it look like? Guarding. Right? Confidence, very tall, but not trying very hard, right? Cockiness, trying very hard, right? And this is interesting, cockiness usually looks strong on the outside, locked and barely can move in the back, because you're holding it, you're trying, you're giving effort. It's not easy. Your body makes a lot of what you feel real. And we're going to explore a little bit about how that works. A lot of this is neurology. Oh, please do silence your cell phones. Thank you. Thank you. No, you're just cueing everybody else. Thank you. I know. Thanks for coming. So what we need to understand and what we really need to explore is the autonomic nerve system. This system, which is a neural system, will help us. It's actually a whole body system, but essentially it's nerves, will help us understand a little bit more. So we're going right to the textbooks at first, and then we're going to simplify, okay? So follow me. We're going to learn a lot in a very, very short amount of time. So the autonomic nervous system, although the body's system contribute, the relative stability of our internal environment depends largely on the orchestrations of the autonomic nerve system. I'm sorry, that's spelled wrong. In short, it's ANS. It's the system of the motor neurons that innervate the smooth and cardiac muscle and glands. Smooth muscle surrounds our organs. Our digestive tract is smooth muscle. This would be muscle, skeletal muscle. Organs have smooth muscle. So they're talking about the organs, the heart, and the glands. Okay? At every moment, signals flood from the visceral organs into the central nervous system, and autonomic nerves make adjustments as necessary to ensure optimal support for body activity. So our organs talk to our brain, says where it's at. Hey, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and I need some control. And our brain makes sure that it's made a reality. So that's the autonomic nerve system, automatic. Happens automatically. In response to changing conditions, the autonomic nerve system shunts blood to more needy areas, speeds or slows heart rate and respiratory, adjusts blood pressure and blood temperature or body temperature, and increases or decreases stomach secretions. Most of this fine-tuning occurs with or without conscious awareness or attention. For instance, few of us realize when our pupils dilate or our arteries constrict. Could we agree on that? Do you think about that? Very, very automatic system. So this autonomic nerve system is really broken up into two different divisions. Okay, so now we have this idea that there's a whole lot of stuff that goes on without our thinking. There's two divisions of how this works. Number one, parasympathetic division. The parasympathetic division is the most active in non-stressful situations. Are you guys stressed out right now? So you have more of this going on. You have a parasympathetic tone to your body. This division is sometimes called the resting and digesting system. Anybody heard of that? Rest and digest? Is chiefly concerned with keeping body energy as low as possible, even as it directs vital housekeeping activities like digestion and elimination of feces and urine. So basically, your body's ability to heal, digest food, make sure the gunk gets out, make sure the good stuff gets in. So it's basically making sure that everything's working right. The whole point of it is to make sure that any broken parts are mended, any old parts are replaced, and you're getting what you need to nourish you and the rest you need to sustain your activity level and your energy level. It's basically like if you went to the beach. Anybody go to the beach and feel great? Or go for a hike and just feel great? Just do something you really, really love and you're just like, wow, I just feel good. Not just in my mind, but my body just feels like loose again. I feel like I have my groove back, something like that. You felt that before, right? Okay, so now here's the other side of this autonomic nerve system. We have the sympathetic division. It's often referred to as the fight or flight system. Okay, its activity is evident when we are excited to find ourselves in emergency or life-threatening situations, such as being frightened by street toughs late at night. That was the example in Human Anatomy and Physiology. I've never heard street toughs used in my life before, but a pounding heart rate, rapid deep breathing, cold sweaty skin, and dilated eye pupils are sure signs of the sympathetic nerve system. Anybody ever feel stressed? Remember I asked? Do you feel a little of that sometimes? Especially if it comes on suddenly? So imagine you're going for that nice hike where you're feeling relaxed and all of a sudden, bear jumps out and it wants to attack you. You will feel all those symptoms. They will all be going off. So the whole point of this is everything, the whole nerve system shuts down except for what will help you survive a moment longer so you can digest your food later. It's very unimportant to digest your food while almost being mauled by a bear. Very unimportant. No, either beating the bear up, which is highly unlikely, or running and climbing a tree, depending on the bear, is going to be your primary thought. So what do you think you need to be active in your body?
or flight system.
Adrenaline, what?
Your fight or flight system.
Fight or flight. Muscles, and the adrenaline helps them work on overtime, mommy strength, right? All that is adrenaline. So yeah, fight or flight. That's what we're talking about. Bear. So bear is going to be our reference for extreme fight or flight. Resting on the beach is going to be our example for extreme resting state where everything is working and everything is functioning correctly. So we have these two divisions. We have the parasympathetic, so the brain will basically tell the body, I want you to do all the resting and digesting functions. Or we're in a situation where the brain is telling the body, hey, I want you to shut down all those things that don't matter for the moment, because if you don't even live past this moment, who cares if you got your food digested? Who cares if you peed if you're dead? Like, it doesn't matter. All those systems just shut off so you can get out. Now, there's a part of the brain that controls these two. That one's called the hypothalamus. Now, these are going to be big words, but we're going to simplify this entire thing, okay? The hypothalamus is the emotional part of the cerebrum that has, the emotional part of the cerebrum, which is the limbic lobe, we're going to return to that, has strong links to the hypothalamus. In fact, it's the emotional part of the limbic lobe to danger and stress that signals the hypothalamus to activate the sympathetic system to fight or flight status. Thus, the hypothalamus serves as the keystone of the emotional visceral brain. You starting to see? This is still from Human Anatomy and Physiology. It's a textbook. It's a very basic textbook. And it's thought that through its centers that emotions influence autonomic nerve system functioning and behavior through the hypothalamus. Okay, so now we have a part of the brain that we're going to identify as, hey, this is the part that takes emotions and turns them into a physical reality. So we're represented here. Hypothalamus, in particular, it's called the reticular formation. I'm going to give you some extra details so you can look them up later if you'd like to. But the hypothalamus, based on the emotions that we experience, it makes it real either in a parasympathetic state or a sympathetic state. So if you have a bear, it's going to tell your body, shut down everything that doesn't matter and live a little. And if you're resting, it's going to say, chill out for a second. Let's get some stuff done. Just take a nap. Enjoy the sun. Don't do much. Enjoy your day. So there's a part of the brain, we had it referenced, the limbic lobe, that's the emotional center of the brain. So we're going to explore that for a second. This is actually from clinical neurology, so we're switching text now, getting a little more detailed. The limbic system has been called the visceral brain and has close anatomic and functional links with the hypothalamus. So we already talked about how they're closely linked. Various portions of the limbic system exert control over the visceral manifestations of emotions and drives, making your emotions and the things, your passions, your desires, the things that you are looking to make a reality, it makes them a physical reality. Such as sexual behavior, that's a strong one. Stimulation of limbic system areas elicit autonomic reactions as cardiovascular and gastrointestinal responses, micturition, which is peeing, defecation, which is pooping, piloerection, fever, and pupillary changes. These reactions are channeled in a large part through the hypothalamus. Okay, it's a long way of saying this. Oh, I'm sorry. It's a long way of saying that the limbic system influences the hypothalamus, and the hypothalamus makes it a physical reality, right? So the amygdala, which is a portion of the limbic system, so that's the actual area that's going to make those close connections. This is what they talk about, still clinical neurology. Because of its interconnections with the sensory association cortex and hypothalamus, it has been suggested that the amygdala plays an important role in establishing associations between our senses and various affective states, which is our autonomic nerve system, whether it's parasympathetic or sympathetic. So our senses go up to the brain, into the limbic cortex, the amygdala, through the hypothalamus, and based on what we're sensing, our body's going to make a reality out of it. we'll skip the rest. It's a complicated. So this is how it works. We have our limbic cortex. That's the emotional center. It controls the hypothalamus, saying, that's what I'm feeling, so make that feeling a physical reality in one of these two states. You're either pretty stressed or pretty relaxed, based on the emotion. So what would an emotion be that stimulates the parasympathetic state? No, an emotion. What's a good happiness, right? Happiness, right? If you're happy, do you feel pretty rested? In general, I mean, what's another one? What's a good emotion? Content, yeah. Do you feel relaxed when you feel content? What about sympathetic? What causes that state, that fight or flight? What kind of emotion? Fear, that's a big one. What's that? Anger, yeah. Love, hate, right? What's that? Pressure, depending on how you know how to interpret it or deal with it. Some people under pressure can be in this state. Some people under pressure live in that state.
Well, one thing, you got this coming this way.
Exactly. Is anybody lost so far? Because I don't want to lose anybody.
Again, I have been under some extreme pressure at times, and I just calm right down. Calm. And then, after it's all over, then I fall apart and I'm over the mess.
It is. We're going to talk about that. Okay.
I mean, I do whatever it is I have to do, and I'm just really calm. Suddenly, everyone around me is just so calm. You get through it, and then, boom, I'm over there.
Yeah. So what we read last about the amygdala, though, in particular, is the amygdala is responsible for this, taking our senses. Now, the last health fundamentals class was about our senses, but if we think about our common five, the things we see, the things we smell, the things we touch, the things we hear, the things we taste, all can actually send a signal, and our body interprets those as an emotional thing. Anybody ever eat something and feel good?
Yes.
Anybody ever eat something and want to run out of the room?
Yep.
Or smell something good or bad? Do you have a different emotional reaction to the things that you sense? If you feel something nice, is it good? If you feel fire, do you feel nice and relaxed? No, right?
Campfire's nice.
Yeah, it's all in perspective. So the senses go up to the limbic cortex, in particular the amygdala, and the amygdala, via the limbic cortex, tells the hypothalamus to make the things that we feel change the way that our body works. Does that make sense? We understanding this loop? We only have one more step in the loop, and then we're done. And then we can only refer to the loop. I won't go back to the textbooks. Okay? One more. This is actually not a text. This is a great book, Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton. Anybody heard of Bruce Lipton? You have. Have you read that book?
Yes.
Oh, fantastic.
This reminds me of The Untethered Soul, too.
I don't know that one. I haven't even heard of that one. So beliefs shape our interpretations. So this has to do with the way that our senses get to that amygdala. Our responses to environmental stimuli are indeed controlled by perceptions, but not all of us have learned not all of our learned perceptions are accurate. For example, not all snakes are dangerous. There's some that you definitely want to get away from. There's some it doesn't matter. You could just hang out by them. They're not going to do anything. Yes, perceptions control biology, but as we've seen, these perceptions can be true or false. Therefore, it would be more accurate to refer to these controlling perceptions as beliefs. So, this is how it works. Instead of it being a direct shot from our senses straight to the amygdala, based on our prior experiences, our senses go through a filter, and that filter is our beliefs. A great way of exempling this one is this. If I see a dog And in my past, a dog has been my family friend, kindest thing on earth. You go, doggy, and you want to go pet it. And you're just like, yes, I can't believe it. And you feel great. You feel great. If you've been attacked by a dog, you could see the same exact dog. It could be a lab. Labs are the sweetest dog on earth with people. And you could see a lab, and because of your prior experiences, you have a belief about dogs, whether you really consciously think about it or not. First reaction is dog. And then maybe afterwards you're like, okay, it's just a lap, like, and you can go over and pet it. Why did you have that first reaction? Why did you have a first hesitation? It's because you have beliefs shaped by prior experiences. It's kind of ingrained. Your brain has like quick responses. And if you haven't relearned them, then you kind of react that way every time you experience a certain sense. So it's not just dogs. There's a lot of examples about this one. Every time, like if you've been yelled at by your boss multiple times, you see your boss, what do? Boss. It's like really quick, you go into guarding mode. Stress level goes up. Fight or flight turns on. That's your boss. It's not going to kill you, but it sure feels threatening. Now, if you see a boss and you're like, well, the boss is the one that's going to promote me, you might be like, boss, work hard, get into a relaxed state where you're just kind of in your groove doing the best thing you can based on your beliefs. So does everybody understand this? If we all get this, we can move on. So our senses come in, but we really see those senses through prior experiences that kind of shape our beliefs, which are changeable. We'll talk about that though. But those beliefs that are in place at that time basically determine how we see those senses, how we interpret those senses to the amygdala. So we get an emotional reaction based on those senses because of how it's filtered, and our body makes it real, either in a very peaceful or very sympathetic state. Now, if you played with like a toy bear your whole life and you saw a real one and you heard it roar on the TV and you had no idea that the bear was actually dangerous, it would be very inappropriate to go, well, I sense that there's a bear, okay? And it's very angry, it's so cute, and because of my beliefs about bears, I'm so happy to be around it, and so I'm just going to rest and let it get near me, right? That would be an inappropriate use of this system. So there's a reason why we have it. It's so that we can live on. It's so we can thrive in appropriate situations. Okay. We're done with that part. So we can refer to this now. Since we already went through the textbooks and we understand that there's a strong connection in this loop, we can move on. So the sympathetic tone, when we talk about that fight or flight, these are going to be very polar opposite. So we're going to only explore one, you'll understand the opposite. So the sympathetic tone has certain symptoms, we'll call them, that happen when we feel that stress level. So everybody pretty much has acknowledged that they felt stress before. Anybody have increased stress hormones? That's hard to feel. Adrenaline. Anybody feel adrenaline in their body before? At any point? Okay. Increased muscle tone. Tense. Have you ever felt tense before? Okay. Increased heart rate, blood pressure, reflex response. Reflex response is if you need to make quick reactions. If you're in that fight mode, you don't want to be sluggish, right? So you don't care about digesting. You do care about how quickly you can react to whatever's about to come at you. We already talked about adrenaline. Increased energy expenditure, but if it's on for too long, it starts to decrease our energy reserves. It's really good in the short term for getting out of a situation or beating up whatever's trying to attack you, one of the two. Decreased immune system response, so you're not worried about killing a bacteria that invaded your body if a bear is going to maul you. It doesn't matter. That bacteria is going to take way longer to kill you than a bear. So immune system shuts down. Don't want to divert energy to that. Instead, I want to divert energy to running from the bear. Decreased digestion, like I said, don't care about what you ate. Decreased absorption, that's taking in nutrients. It doesn't matter if you're going to die, so don't die. Decreased excretion, don't care about peeing or pooping. Don't care about healing, just need to get away. And decreased cognitive function, except for the things that are reflexive and very kind of primal. In other words, you don't really want to be solving complex algebra problems while fighting a bear. It doesn't make sense. Why would you need to? So all that, higher thinking functions, all those kind of shut down, and you're only thinking one mode: get away from the situation or conquer what's in front of me. Does that make sense? So the complete opposite is true with the parasympathetic. Increased digestion, increased absorption, increased immune response so you can heal, increased excretion so you can get all the gunk out, any of the toxins out of your body, increased healing, we talked about that, and increased cognitive function. You can think a lot clearer when you feel like that. Anybody go to the beach and come back and you're like, oh, if I wanted to read a book, I feel like I could read the whole thing in one sitting? You feel good. You're not as stressed, your body's relaxed, your heart rate's down, blood pressure goes down. When you sit on the beach, you can come back, your heart rate or your blood pressure will go down. You're not as reflexive or hyper, or if someone pokes you, you don't jump, you don't have these awkward sensations, your adrenaline's down, and you have energy to burn for later because you're not burning it out. You just use slow energy. Does that make sense? So it's very important to understand this. We're going to refer back to this, but think about all these, the importance of them in different situations. It's not important while you pay a bill. Has anybody been stressed while paying a bill?
Well, not me.
Or that? I've felt that before. So basically what it comes down to is the sympathetic nerve system is good for handling acute stressors, very short-term problems. It's very good for that. Very bad for everything else. So this is going to be our tone scale. Okay, we talked about the bear all the way to the beach where there are no bears and you can just relax. This is going to be our tone scale. So this doesn't happen where it's like one system is on, the other is totally off. It's more that one is more dominant and the other is lagging, and then at another state you might have another that's dominant. So I might be more prone to healing but on a little bit of an alert where I can still heal and digest but not really to its fullest capacity, or I might be like a little on edge but I still have some function going on, so I have some basic functions still happening. So here's our fun tone scale. If you see a bear in the woods, run. You better have that sympathetic system on 100%. Nothing else should be happening. Now, if you see a bear, and you caught it bathing, then you might want to be cautious, like extremely cautious, because you might embarrass the bear and the bear might get extra angry and attack you again. But seriously, if you see a bear, you would want to be extremely on high alert, but you're not running yet. You're just on high alert, you're getting away, but if the need to jump into that highest state is there, you're already almost there. If you see a bear hiding in the woods, I found some fun pictures for this. But it looks like the bear's having a little more fun. So it's like, it is a bear after all, but it seems to be playing. So I'm not totally on guard, but I'm still on a little bit of an alert. Okay? So got a sick bear? If you got a sick bear, you might not be so worried because you're like, look, there's a bear, there's no way he's coming after me. I mean, he's still a bear and maybe he's not actually puking, but it is a bear, so I have like this half alert, but I'm just gonna kind of move on with my day. Now, if you see a bear in the distance, you're like, there's bears here. I should probably have a little bit of an alert to what's going on, but in general, I'm just gonna continue and enjoy my walk. If you're in the woods, you can acknowledge that there are bears in woods, so I should probably have just this slight bit of a responsiveness on at all times, but in general, I'm going to thoroughly enjoy my walk and not really worry about it. And then you go to the beach, there are no bears. So you can just turn the whole thing off, kick your feet up, take a nap, and your body just starts to rejuvenate. Okay, that's our scale, our tone scale for sympathetic all the way down to parasympathetic where we rest and digest. Okay? And we could talk about different situations where you feel like you're at a different point in this scale, but I just thought it was a little bit fun to put it that way. So what causes sympathetic tone for us? We talked about a couple, but who's experienced a stressful situation before? Okay, can you name one good example of a stressful situation?
I was in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Yes.
18 months.
Yes.
That was stressful.
We're actually going to come back to that one. Okay. That one's an important one. That one we're coming back to. Any others outside of combat?
Trying to meet your goals at work, and you're worried about not getting to that goal and getting fired, perhaps because of that. You're
Anybody feel that one?
on that.
Yeah. That one's a big one actually. That one's common. What else? It's a good one.
Being responsible for kids, like a camp counselor or
Yeah.
bunch of people involved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, caretaking. Make sure you do it right. Raising kids. Sometimes. I have a couple examples. Let's see if you experience. I just made these up, or I found some. We talked about work, not meeting deadlines, having angry bosses, things like that, where you're just not happy, feeling stressed, under attack. Way too much work, trying to meet deadlines. We already talked about that one, right? A lot of bills, a lot of paperwork, and you don't know when you're going to be able to get done. Ever feel that one? Do you feel stress when you're like that? Some of the things, some of the symptoms of a sympathetic tone, have you felt those in the middle of these things? Flat tire? Really? I mean, sometimes you could just be like, great, whatever. I wasn't in a rush. But what if you're in a rush? All of a sudden, it gets way different. The whole situation feels different. Remember, it was about beliefs, right? Flat tire, not great. You can deal with it. Flat tire and you're late. Whole different system, because the beliefs are also shaped by like, oh, if I'm late I will get fired, therefore you can't do it. That takes a little bit of concentration. If you're stressed out, do you think you'll do it better or worse? Probably worse. Yeah. Traffic.
Oh, yeah.
Ugh. Doesn't it make you cringe to see it? I don't know.
Looks like it.
It might be. We talk about dogs. See an angry dog? Most of us should have a somewhat appropriate response to have a little bit of a sympathetic tone at least. To say, this dog, is it on a leash or is it not? That should be the first question. If it's not on a leash, you should be like the bear attacking you. But if it's on a leash, you could be like, okay, I'm going to be mindful of where I'm moving. If it breaks the leash, I know I need to run. You have an awareness. That's pretty much like there's a bear bathing, almost. You're very high up there with an angry dog, especially one that can be dangerous. They tend to be sweet dogs, actually. But you see a lab? It's a little weirder when you feel a heightened sympathetic response, very fight or flight, when you see a brown lab, especially when it's wagging its tail and can't wait to meet you. It should be a much calmer response with a very low tone, kind of like walking in the woods. I know it's a dog, and once in a while a dog doesn't quite act correctly, but in general this is a very calm and peaceful dog, right? So a very low sympathetic tone with a mostly parasympathetic tone. It's a scale. You're trying to find an equilibrium. It's not one or the other. It's a scale here. Soldiers. This one is interesting because you can have a group of soldiers all experiencing the exact same thing. When you come home, all the soldiers act differently to the same situations. 4 people in a vehicle, IED goes off in the vehicle, doesn't kill anybody. How do they handle it? Some come back and go, man, that was a rough ride. Some people come back, PTSD. Some people come back and go, I got to tell you a story. There's a little more of a thrill to it without as much of a shock. Nothing happened, so therefore, whatever. That is shaped by beliefs. Soldiers are a great example of reshaping beliefs, because soldiers go through an intense training process in order to get you to operate in a clear thinking mode with the ability to react, which means about a balance of a sympathetic tone, so you're very aware and able to respond, and at the same time you're able to think. Now, if someone comes if someone comes actually to your face, I used to be in the Army for 9 years as well, just so you know. But if someone comes and attacks you physically, they're right on you, they have a knife or a pistol or something like that, you better be in 100% sympathetic tone. Everything should be adrenaline. It is conquer, suppress what's going on right there. But as soon as you're trying to do maneuvers, you better be able to calm down like that. As soon as the immediate threat that's saying, like, I can't get to the maneuver if I'm dead, so therefore I need to deal with the situation that's imminently present so I can get to the more complex maneuver or team coordinated action, that requires some thinking. So I better bring that sympathetic state where it's like fight or flight only down to something where I can think cognitively but still be very reactive. Does that make sense? So soldiers, they go through training, boot camp. What do you have in boot camp to help you with training? Who do you have?
Drill sergeant.
Drill sergeants. Notoriously the meanest people on earth, and they are not. They are some of the most loving. And here's why. If they didn't love you, they wouldn't train you hard, because they wouldn't be preparing you for what you might experience. The more they care for you, the harder they train you, and the less they care about how you feel in the moment, because you're not going to die in training. Training is not for seeing if you make it alive. Training is to make sure that you can reshape your beliefs enough so that when all those senses come in the heat of battle, you can filter it to respond appropriately. Soldiers are a great example of how well you change your belief system, your perceptions, in order to get an accurate awareness of real threat versus I should be aware, but I need to move on and focus on what I'm supposed to do. Somebody who hasn't been trained, bomb goes off 4 miles away, they're under a table. A soldier goes, no big deal. We're playing video games. Someone's get bombed. They keep playing video games like nothing happened. They can stay at a very relaxed state unless imminent threat is present, and they know when to respond and turn it on and turn it off. Turn it on, turn it off. PTSD is a great example of someone who doesn't have the appropriate filter or hasn't been trained thoroughly enough to handle all of those situations, and then a whole lot more seems like an imminent threat than is actually an imminent threat. It's an example of poor training. Does that make sense? Being raised by our parents, being shown things in the community around us, cars in a street, big danger. You don't even want to experience what it is. Parents will yell at kids that run into the street. Are they being mean parents? No, they're being drill sergeants, caring more for them the harder they yell to make sure that they don't step out in front of the car. If we tone it down, we end up with a whole generation of people who have no idea how to handle the stimulus coming in. And they all get messed up, and we all end up on depression meds because we can't handle it. Because we haven't learned what's an actual threat and what's not. Things that are not a threat at all of a sudden go through the roof and they become this imminent threat all the time. For some people, it feels like it never shuts off. You understand? So I think this is really interesting. We as chiropractors, it's a little weird for us to be talking about just emotions. Like, why would we care? So I want to go through something because you actually have filters in your own body that can be distorted internally. So a lot of you are already patients, but for those of you who are not, this is going to be a little bit of a physiology so you can understand why I, as a chiropractor, would care at all. We could have discussions, but why would we be doing a class? So your physiology can actually shape the way that we feel, shape the way that senses come into our body, and they're filtered so our brain gets a sense. Is it an appropriate sense or is it an inappropriate sense? So we're going to explore a little bit about that. So we have in our body, this is the skull, the neck vertebra. This is actually the inferior oblique muscle of the neck. It's one of the densest muscles in proprioceptors, which are nerves that tell us where we are in space. Okay. we don't need too many details about that yet, but the muscle spindles, basically nerves in the muscles telling us how hard it's pulling, the joints and the discs of the spine actually all contribute together. And this is through the whole body, but especially the neck. It's very, very concentrated in the neck. Those all collaborate together. They're all considered mechanoreceptors together. These mechanoreceptors, as they come together, they send a signal to the brain about where we are in space. So this is just one of our senses. Okay, just one. As it comes up, it goes to the cerebellum. And as it leaves the cerebellum, it does have influences directly down to our posture control center. So if I have distortions in my neck, then I can actually have distortions in my whole body posture. It's a direct loop. It goes up, down, really quick. Up to the brain saying, hey, I'm off. Down the body saying, well, I'm going to show you like how off you are. And it gets distorted in its physical manifestation. But signals also go, I'm sorry, that's for later. Distortions also go upward to the thalamus. From the thalamus, they actually go to the, we're familiar with this one, limbic cortex, cerebral cortex, and the sensory cortex. So what we interpret as our senses, how well we think, and also the emotions that we feel can be distorted by the way we move. They go back down. We talked about this one already. The limbic cortex actually talks to the hypothalamus, and the hypothalamus actually dictates the hormones of the body. Okay, when we understand this, we actually understand that, well, that means that the emotions that I feel will change the hypothalamus and the tone. Not only does it tell the organs what to do, it also send hormones through my body to regulate all those functions of the body in a parasympathetic or sympathetic state. So depending on what I feel, I also will get that hormone change. The hypothalamus does send signals down to the pons. This is more intricate neurology. We actually showed this slide to doctors, so I'm showing you like some complex stuff, but there's just tracks, basically like ropes going down your spinal cord of certain nerves. But it goes down and it ends up telling our muscles what tone to keep, how much our immune system will be functioning. We talked about how it's raised in a parasympathetic and decreased in a sympathetic response. The annulus of the disc, how well the disc can heal the blood vessels, this is really important, and the viscera, which are just the rest of the organs. So all these are controlled by the hypothalamus through the pons. They're also controlled by the hypothalamus and made real through the hypothalamus through the hormones. So both nerves and hormones are now telling the body what to do in certain states, depending on what I'm feeling in my senses. This is really important because when you have a subluxation of the upper cervical spine, you're distorting the senses, the proprioceptive senses, and you can actually have emotional responses over long periods of time that dictate the physiology of your body and leave you in certain states where things are either healing, you know, if everything's working right, it should be healing, resting, the tone should be down, everything should start to level out. Or it can leave you in a sympathetic state where you are tense, spasming, not digesting, barely peeing, not pooping right, not getting food in your body. It's not working, because it's leaving you, just because a bone is out of place, putting stressors on the mechanoreceptors that are inappropriate, it can leave you in that sympathetic state as if you're constantly needing to fight something when there's nothing going on at all. That's when you can sit on a beach and still have high blood pressure. It's kind of weird. It's kind of crazy. So this is, back to the textbook, it's the importance of the autonomic nervous system to understand a little bit more of the big picture of this. Since the autonomic nervous system is involved in nearly every important process that goes on with the body, it's not surprising that abnormalities of the autonomic functioning can have far-reaching effects. Such abnormalities can impair blood delivery and elimination and can threaten life itself. It's like living but dying. So how can you change tone? What are some things you can do? Change your beliefs. Retrain. There's a lot of ways we'd actually do that. I mean, some of them are simple. Like a dog, it might take a little while, but you can get the fact that most dogs are fine. Most dogs are going to be quite calm. But there's some simple things. I mean, we heard this, we've seen advertising for this, but basically what we're asking is, how do you get away from the bear? And is the bear on the outside or the inside? See, if the bear's on the outside, that's no problem. But if the bear's coming from a distortion on the inside, then you have to maybe make some changes in other ways. So let's talk about it. If the bear's on the outside, if it's light, if there's nothing going on, just chill out. Seriously, just chill out. That's when your friend comes over and they're like, why are you stressing? Nothing's going on. They're giving you a light motivator. A good friend, is giving you a light, sarcastic motivator to basically say, dude, you're blowing this out of proportion. You ever hear someone say that or do that yourself, or someone ever tell you, like, are you crazy? What are you thinking right now? They're just being nudgy, but they're basically saying the same exact thing. Chill out. Your belief system is so wrong for this situation. As soon as you see it from their perspective, you go, I see what you're saying. And you can just relax. Anybody ever have that? Just a very, very simple version of that. Have some fun. Sometimes you do need to. Sometimes, like if you're just feeling stressed, you just go do something else. Get your mind off of what it's been on. Take your focus off of it. What's that?
Go to the beach.
Go to the beach. Yeah, we're in St. Petersburg. It's a great beach. Go on retreats. A lot of people go on retreats for this reason. They say, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to remove myself from the woods for a little bit. I'm going to get around some people. And a lot of times on retreats, they have a lot of activities, right? Those activities actually are meant to, and they don't say it like this, nobody thinks of it like this, but basically what they're doing is going through a little bit of retraining to reshape your beliefs. I mean, at retreats, they always have some of the same goofy stuff, and we laugh about it, but we participate. It's like the trust jumps where, all your friends are behind you and you have to fall backwards and they catch you. Why are they doing that? Because falling isn't killing you if somebody's there to catch you. So you can actually go through a lot of situations in life where you feel like you're falling, but if you understand that there's people in your life that will support you, I mean, one simple task is basically retraining a belief system so that when you're sensing those things that you used to before the retreat, hopefully you can go back and rethink them. Retreats are important. I mean, sometimes we forget that a lot of those goofy things that we do actually help us. They're not that stupid after all. Take a vacation. We should once in a while. My wife actually grew up in Spain, and one of the mottos is they said, if you don't go on vacation in the summer, you're guaranteed to get sick in the winter. They understand that there has to be a time where you can just chill out and let your body rejuvenate. Just mend things when you don't have to worry about anything. Just go rest. Get totally into that parasympathetic state and don't leave it for a while until you're finally rejuvenated. Rejuvenation is a powerful word. We don't use it in this culture because we almost never experience it. We just go. And we forget that this is important. Think differently about your situation. Just have a different thought. Have a new thought. Think around things. Take a step back. Change perspective, right? Let it go. I think, and this is kudos to all your women, because I think the reason women live longer is because they don't hold everything in. They talk it out. And guys go, I'm not feeling that. And you know what we're doing? Throwing it on our back most of the time. I'm being very stereotypical right now, but seriously. I mean, it's funny how much we talk about it in our culture, that women talk things out and women are more emotional. Why is that bad if they're letting half of it go instead of saying, I'm going to bury it? So maybe talking it out is one of the healthiest things you can do. And we need to stop criticizing what we actually might need. So I mean, seriously, kudos to all you women, because, and whether or not you're like this, it's just the stereotype, if true, might be saving your life. That's it. That's all I'm saying. Occasionally, this applies. I'm not kidding. I have heard many times where people quit a job and heal. Many times. I'm not telling you to go out and quit. This better never come back on me, okay? But this doesn't only apply to jobs. This applies to projects. Things that really aren't your passion, but you picked up anyway. that you shouldn't have. You don't have the skill set for it, the passion for it, the heart for it, the desire for it. You weren't made for it. Don't do it. There's probably someone who was created that was made for it. Do what you were made to do. You'll be way more peaceful if you do that. Your body will heal if you do that. But if you only do what other people tell you to do, oh my gosh, has anybody done just what somebody else told them to do because they were told to do it with no other reason? It's harder to do than something you're passionate about, isn't it? Generally. So maybe that applies. Maybe just quit that. Maybe. Sorry, I wasn't supposed to do that. So this is our system, and this is where we can intervene. We can either take a vacation and change the senses, go on a retreat, change the senses, right? We can escape the situation, we can eliminate the whole thing, remove the bear entirely. Or we can change our beliefs about situations. Now, being in a sympathetic tone because a bear is present, totally appropriate. Being in a sympathetic tone when there's an angry dog, totally appropriate. Sitting in traffic, do you really need to not heal and act like you're going to fight a bear in a car? Maybe we should think about that one. So maybe we should change our beliefs a little bit about that situation. Because you know what it'll do? That car ride, instead of breaking us down, depleting our energy reserves, we get to work and we're exhausted by an hour into work. We could actually stay in a sympathetic tone, sing some music, go, well, I can't do anything about it anyway, enjoy the ride, heal a little, get to work, and have plenty of energy in reserve. Totally by changing the way I filter the senses that I'm experiencing. Because my body is taking that emotional response I have and making it a reality in one of these two tones. In our case, if the bear's on the inside, then we know that distortions in the spine can actually affect your entire physiology through the same exact system. The bear's not on the outside, and it's not a belief system. This has nothing to do with your interpretation of the senses. It does in a way because the senses were distorted, but it's really the sense that was the problem in the first place. Mechanoreceptors, things like that. So if you do have problems in your spine, you actually are experiencing a giant loop of distortion. And that means if you can correct that, if you can restore the balance of that tone of the muscles, the appropriate alignment of the facet capsules, and the correct pressure on the discs, then that means the mechanoreceptive input to the brain becomes normalized and your brain interprets it as ease, balance, which means as it becomes a physical reality, I feel calm, I feel rested, my emotional state changes, my hypothalamus then makes that a reality. In a parasympathetic state, my body is able to heal. Basically, hold on. I want to go back to this for a second. No, I'll tell you. What? I thought I put it up here. Whatever. My body is able to heal in a manner where I reverse all that sympathetic tone. So basically, instead of being very, very tense, I become relaxed. Instead of having high blood pressure, I have low blood pressure. Instead of my heart pounding out of my chest, I finally can sit at ease. Instead of not digesting, I start digesting. Instead of not peeing, not pooping, I start doing those two. And honestly, this is exactly what we see. This is exactly what we see happen. The entire autonomic tone goes from a very sympathetic state to a very sympathetic state. And yeah, you're going to go out and you're going to go home and maybe there's like something to do, or you're like, oh yeah, you know, I'm much better now. You go home and you have a stack of bills and you're like, ugh, you know, and you have a little bit of that sympathetic tone, but it's not aggravated from the inside. It's just a stressor from the outside. So there's some things that you can do. There's things that you can do to change this whole thing. And there's some things that you do need help with. That's appropriate. Sometimes we can ask for help. So for those of you who are not patients, I do want to explain just briefly what we do here. We evaluate to see if this area, which is the skull, the atlas, which is the top bone of the spine, and then underneath of it is the axis. We want to see if that is in alignment or out of alignment. When it's in alignment, we have a nice canal here, and the muscle tone on either side is very, very balanced. Okay, the joints aren't distorted, there's no aggravation. When that atlas goes out of alignment, we end up with imbalanced muscle tones, stretch on one side, a looseness on the other. The joints become a little bit distorted and stuck that way, and the canal where the spinal cord actually comes through, it's the brainstem specifically, actually becomes compressed, and you end up with pressure on nerves on top of that change of the mechanoreceptors as well. So what we do is we actually take a set of, first we do a very thorough examination to find out if you're in alignment or not. Basically, we're checking to see if you have nerve interference or not. Okay, if you do have nerve interference, we want to know why and what's causing it. So we take a set of three-dimensional x-rays, and they're very specific x-rays, and they let us see the atlas bone in relationship to the structures around it, like the skull and the rest of the neck. And we measure those using specific tools down to 1/100th of a degree, so we can get a very accurate assessment of where that bone is. We take the numbers that we get from that, we calibrate it through a couple formulas to get exact vectors that we use a percussion sound wave adjusting tool to set that bone in its correct position, basically freeing up that opening and restoring the balance of the muscle tone and the joint alignment. So once we get those numbers, we know exactly how to place you on the table, and we also use those numbers to calibrate the percussion adjusting instrument to the exact angle we need to adjust you on. And this instrument, it does use percussive sound waves, so it doesn't actually touch you. It makes an impulse, a sound impulse, that moves the bone very, very gently. And so once we get everything aligned and you positioned correctly, we go ahead and make that correction, aligning the bone. It's very, very painless. Okay, anybody can attest to that. It doesn't feel like anything, but because of the nature of that percussive sound wave, it does make a correction. And when we make that correction, we do have an expectation of it holding. Basically, when your body gets the correct signals in its appropriate position, then the tone coming outward should help stabilize the body, so that we can make progress over time. And this is the importance of holding. This is for everybody. If you're holding, that means you get to stay on the inside in a parasympathetic state, in a resting and digesting state. If you were going to go out of alignment all the time, you would be like resting and digesting, bear, resting and digesting, bear, resting and digesting. That would be the equivalent of going out of alignment, getting adjusted, going out of alignment, getting adjusted all the time. Now it's challenging sometimes, and some of the challenge actually comes from bears on the outside. If you're stressed, if you have bears on the outside, it's very difficult to get your body into a place where it can recalibrate. Instead, it just goes right into a tense mode again, and that can actually cause a little bit of aggravation. So if any of you have experienced like little times in your life, part of the reason it can be difficult sometimes to hold, part of the reason, is because you have a bear on the outside. I mean, kind of. Does that make sense? So you're stuck in this state where you're like, I gotta fight, instead of just allowing things to just recalibrate, heal, reform. Maybe we need a vacation. This is a quote from a doctor. She's a professor on molecular and behavioral neuroscience at Rutgers University in New Jersey. Our research shows that emotions are intimately connected with our entire physiology of the body. The chemical processes that mediate emotion occur not only within our brains, but also at many sites throughout the body, in fact, the very surfaces of every single cell. Okay. There is a lot of literature. I didn't want to dive into it, but they are understanding more and more that tone is not just the nerve signals. Tone actually affects the way that the cells act. It affects cell absorption. It affects the way that we process DNA, make new proteins, everything. Tone. This is a very, very big subject, and I literally skimmed the surface, even if you feel like I didn't. I skimmed the surface. It's a very interesting topic. This is again from Bruce Lipton in his book Biology of Belief. Redistributing the viscera's blood to the limbs in the fight or flight response results in an inhibition of growth-related function. So basically, if I need to fight, I better get the blood out of here and to the things that need it to get out of the situation. So I don't need to grow, I need to live. Without the blood's nourishment, and the visceral organs cannot function properly. The visceral organs stop doing their life-sustaining work of digesting, absorbing, excretion, and other functions that provide for the growth of cells and the production of the body's energy reserves. Hence, the stress response inhibits growth processes and further comprises the body's survival by interfering with the generation of vital energy reserves. This is why when you're stressed out, you are exhausted. And basically what he's saying is you cannot, the summary of what he was talking in this chapter is you cannot be at defense and growth or healing at the same exact time. Which means if you're in a chronic state of stress, don't expect to get better. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen that way. Now, a lot of these things I'm talking about, I mean, the beliefs that we have, we have, you know, you were talking about how you can experience something powerful on the outside and feel very peaceful in the middle of it. Very aggressive on the outside, attacking almost, and be at peace. So, yeah, you can have a heart that can endure. You can have a real fortitude on the inside, and that really reshapes the things that we experience on the outside. Where one person, like two people experiencing the same thing in a job, one can thrive, the other can crash. Same thing with the bear, same thing with races, same thing with anything. It just, if you think about it, the way that you were trained, the things that you believe, the things that are true to you really shape the experiences that we have on the outside. And therefore directly correlates with our posture, our health, our healing, our growth. It's very, very, very powerful. So here it is, one last time, okay? We can either remove the senses, we can change our beliefs. If the senses are on the inside, if the bear's on the inside, it would be appropriate to look for help, to change that to a very balanced thing. But if the senses are on the outside, once in a while we need a vacation, once in a while we need a break. But that's a bigger changer, the filter that we have. Because you're always going to experience something in life. You never know. Summary of the whole thing, peaceful mind, a calm mind promotes healing and normal function. If you can live at rest despite your circumstances, you can live in health, no matter what's going on. See, I could take this whole class and I could say a whole different statement. I could say, hey, if your kids are stressing you out, if the whole goal of it was remove the senses that are causing the aggravation, that means remove your children. If you're having a rough day with your spouse, don't remove your spouse from the situation. That doesn't make any sense. Have a different mindset. Take a break. I mean, we've heard all these things from people that are trying to help us. They're actually helping our health without destroying our relationships, our goals, or the places that we're going to be going in life and things that we're going to do. So this is the healing power of a peaceful mind. It's the healing power of a peaceful mind. That's really the whole class. There's a couple things I wanted to go over real quick before you leave. We have our last class in the Health Fundamental series on May 15th. I might rename it, I don't know, but Natural Stewards, understanding the importance of the environment in relationship to our health. Basically, don't complain about bad water if you're pouring Drano down a sink. You're the one creating it. Don't chop down a forest and say, I don't know where all the clean air is. You chop down the forest. We are the stewards of the earth. We are the ones responsible for making sure that generation after generation it can produce not only for ourselves, but also for 3, 5, 7 generations down the line. If we're only consumers, we'll give nothing to our kids. But if we're stewards, then we can actually increase basically the natural inheritance that we pass on to our children. So we're going to talk a little bit about that homeostasis that we should have with our environment, some of the things that we're doing right, some of the things that we're doing wrong. We're just going to explore it a little bit. And then we always have on the first and third Tuesday of every month, we have a health restoration class. We do the same class every first and third Tuesday. If you haven't been to one, you really should. It's a really good way of understanding how your body works neurologically, and a little bit more about how what we do affects your body. If you have any friends that might benefit from from care here, this class would be a great class to go to, just to understand a little bit more. On top of, what's that?
Are they all at
They're going to be both at 6:30 this time. And then if you haven't been to the other health fundamental classes later this year, we are going to repeat. Okay? Having fun with that. And the last thing I want to leave you with is this quote. This is from B.J. Palmer. He's actually the founder of the chiropractic field, the developer of it. His father really kind of jumped it off, but he's the one that built it to what it is today. You never know how far-reaching something you think, say, or do today will affect the lives of millions tomorrow. You have the ability to change this community. Share what you know, okay?